Governor Kathy Hochul no longer has a primary opponent now that Antonio Delgado, who's also her lieutenant governor, dropped out of the race earlier this week. That decision came after the politically influential Working Families Party opted not to support Delgado at its state convention last weekend. Joining me now to talk about that and their push to raise taxes on the wealthy are the two co-directors of the New York Working Families Party, Jasmine and María Archila. Welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So take me back to last weekend. You did not endorse Delgado, but you also opted not to endorse the incumbent, Governor Kathy Hochul, and instead you endorsed neither, right? So explain this decision to me.
Okay, so the Working Families Party, like all the other political parties, has to make a decision about who we nominate for statewide office around the month of February. We convened a convention, more than 200 members of the party, members of the labor unions and community organizations that are part of the party gathered and had a very animated debate about what is the correct way to use the power of the party. The Working Families Party has always been about advancing an agenda that improves the lives of workers and their families. That's really like the purpose that animates all of our political decisions and our work. And after a very long and robust debate, that took into account that Governor Hochul has made significant strides on childcare, important progress on immigration, and proposed a budget that doesn't actually lean into scarcity, and looking at Lieutenant Governor Delgado's agenda that really speaks to the issues that matter to the party. The state committee decided essentially to say, let's not endorse either one of these campaigns. Let's instead do a technical fix that's called putting a placeholder candidate so that we will still have a candidate for governor at some point this year. We can make an endorsement decision, but not in the moment where we were gathering these past weekend.
So let me ask you first, though. Delgado, like you alluded to, he made clear he was running to the left of Kathy Hochul, and he was really aligning his policy priorities with the Working Families Party. So why not Delgado?
I think our folks had a really spirited debate where they talked about the pros and cons of each candidate. And though Delgado showed some promising signs of committing to a lot of the issues we cared about, some folks questioned his history from when he was in Congress, as well as his time as lieutenant governor with Kathy Hochul, and then also the health and viability of his campaign. And so when people factored in all of those considerations, the overwhelming majority of the convention voters decided to vote for a placeholder option.
Okay, so now it appears that Kathy Hochul will likely not have a primary, at least not a competitive primary. Is it safe to assume you will now at some point endorse Kathy Hochul and put her on the WFP line?
It is safe to assume that if Kathy Hochul continues to be the Democratic nominee, the Working Families Party will work in November to try to elect her. But what it is not safe to assume, and it's important for viewers, is that alone will carry her. The fact is the governor still has to demonstrate to New Yorkers that she is as committed now as she was the first week in January to delivering on the affordability agenda that people voted for when they elected Mayor Mamdani, when they elected the mayors in Albany, in Buffalo, and Syracuse. And so she still has to generate the level of enthusiasm and the level of commitment that is required to win what will be inevitably a competitive general election. And so the Working Families Party will continue to push for an agenda that addresses the affordability crisis, that recommits New York to protecting immigrant New Yorkers, and that asks what is a very fair question to ask, which is why aren't the richest few in New York contributing their fair share? And we believe that taxing the rich is not just a demonstration that you want to fix the problems that people are facing, but it's also a demonstration that you understand that the levels of inequality that we have in New York have to be addressed, and that New Yorkers who are the wealthiest New Yorkers have the capacity to contribute more.
Let me ask you about Mayor Mamdani, who I know you are aligned with. I think he said he voted for himself on the Working Families Party line back in November. What do you think of his strategy when it comes to taxing the rich, the way he has gone to Albany and pressed for it? But at the same time, he said this week that the city's budget deficit had essentially shrunk from 12 billion to 7 billion.
7 billion is still a massive deficit for New York City to close. And the only way to close that deficit is for the state to step in and to help and provide resources. And it's not just New York City in need. Albany mayor testified about the needs in Albany and Syracuse and Buffalo. Across the state, our cities need resources. The federal government is cutting back and removing their responsibility to support New Yorkers. And in this moment, when we live in the wealthiest country and we live in one of the wealthiest states, it is time for New York to show and demonstrate real leadership, that we can actually protect and take care of New Yorkers, and we can tax the ultra rich. So Zoran did his part. He went to Albany, he testified, and now we're going to do our part. The people are going to do their part. We're all gathering and we're going up to Albany to demand that the state legislature tax the ultra rich and invest in our communities for childcare, healthcare, and to support public transportation.
How would you assess this first month? I guess from now we're up to what, 40 days, 43 days that Mamdani has been in office. Have you been disappointed by anything you've seen?
So I'll go back for a second to when de Blasio became mayor, my child was 4 years old, and I got to benefit from UPK, the Universal Pre-K program that he put in place. And it forever, like, soft spot for de Blasio because of that. And when we know that what Mayor Mamdani accomplished by negotiating with the governor a real investment in childcare, what we know that will do for families is to relieve the pressures of the $20,000 that it costs to send your child to childcare, to daycare. So we are very, very excited about that. First out the gate, making sure that one of the biggest and most difficult promises to accomplish is actually on its way. We see the mayor really kind of adapting to the realities of governing, trying to maintain the big tent coalition that ultimately elected him. And we see him sort of refining the way that he relates to the governor, because he needs to be able to partner with the governor to accomplish the rest of his agenda. So we appreciate that leadership in some ways, which requires big adaptation also for the movement, for the outside forces that were the forces that helped elect him. And obviously he's dealing with the biggest snowstorm we have seen in generations, and it's been a very, very difficult snowstorm. And we continue to be both inspired, I would say, feel like the city is in good hands, and our movement that generated the possibility of a Mayor Mamdani continues to find its footing in these new moments.
We got to go, but I just want to ask you, there will be a lot of competitive primaries coming up, both on the state level and on the federal level, congressional races. Are you guys going to get involved in some of those? I'm thinking in particular of the Nydia Velasquez seat, where she's retiring.
We have already interviewed hundreds of candidates. There are more candidates now seeking the WFP endorsement than we have seen in a really long time. And so we'll be going through a very thorough vetting process of everyone who applies for the WFP endorsement, and we'll be rolling out those announcements in the weeks to come.
All right, a busy few months for you guys. Thank you so much, Jasmine Gripper and Maria Archila. Thank you both.